The fact that you clicked on this video at this exact moment isn't coincidence. Your nervous system recognized something in that title that your conscious mind is still catching up to. And I need you to understand something right now. What's happening to you is real. Not metaphorically real, not symbolically real, physically, measurably, biologically real. You've been seeing 1111, maybe for weeks, maybe for months, on clocks, on receipts, on license plates, on your phone when you weren't even checking the time. And each time you see it, there's this flutter in your chest, this moment of, what? Recognition? Confirmation? A feeling that something is trying to reach you through the noise of ordinary reality. Most people will tell you it's pattern recognition, confirmation bias, your brain playing tricks on you, and part of that is true, but it's true in a way that's far more interesting than the skeptics realize, because what they're missing is this. Your brain doesn't just recognize patterns, it responds to frequencies. And when you see 1111, you're not just noticing numbers, you're synchronizing. Let me explain what I mean. Right now, as you're watching this, your consciousness is operating at a specific frequency. Neuroscientists can measure this, your brainwave states, the electromagnetic field generated by your heart, the coherence between your neural networks and your autonomic nervous system. These aren't metaphors, these are measurable phenomena that determine what you can perceive and what remains invisible to you. And here's what most people don't realize: the universe, or the field, or consciousness itself, whatever language makes sense to you, operates on frequency too. Not metaphorical frequency, actual vibrational frequency. And certain numbers, certain geometric patterns, certain configurations of reality act as resonance points between your person, all frequency, and the larger field frequency. Mittendahl's 11 is one of those resonance points. When you see it, something extraordinary is happening. Your consciousness is temporarily synchronizing with a bandwidth of reality that most humans move through completely blind to. You're becoming, for just a moment, transparent to a layer of existence that's always been there but usually remains outside your perceptual range. And the reason you're seeing it repeatedly right now, the reason it feels urgent, the reason you felt compelled to click on this video, is because something in you has shifted. Your baseline frequency has changed. Not metaphorically, literally. Your bioelectric field is operating at a different resonance than it was 3 months ago, 6 months ago, maybe even a year ago. This shift didn't happen randomly. It happened because you've been doing the work. Maybe you don't even realize what work I'm talking about. And maybe you think you've just been surviving, just been struggling, just been trying to figure things out. But every time you chose authenticity over comfort, every time you listened to your intuition instead of your conditioning, every time you sat with difficult emotions instead of numbing them, you were recalibrating your frequency, and now you've crossed a threshold. Your system has reached a resonance point where you can begin to perceive and interact with dimensions of reality that were previously inaccessible to you. The ancient traditions called this awakening. Modern neuroscience calls it heightened coherence. Quantum physics calls it observer effect expansion. They're all describing the same phenomenon from different angles. But here's where it gets really interesting. This isn't just about perception. This is about activation. When you see 1111, you're not receiving a message from the universe. You're being activated by it. Think of it like this. Imagine you're a radio that's been tuned to AM stations your entire life. You didn't even know FM existed, but then something in your circuitry shifts, and suddenly you're picking up signals you couldn't access before. You didn't create those signals, they were always broadcasting, but now you can receive them. That's what's happening to you. Except it's not just about receiving, it's about transmission too, because as your frequency shifts, you begin to affect the field around you in ways you've never been able to before. You start collapsing probability fields, you start generating synchronicities, you start bending the flow of what most people call luck or chance or coincidence. And this brings me to what I need you to understand most clearly. You're being activated into 3 specific supernatural powers, not fantasy powers, not imagination, real, documentable, repeatable abilities that you're going to need to learn how to stabilize and direct, because right now they're probably manifesting chaotically, random bursts of intuition, unexplainable moments where you think of someone and they immediately text you, dreams that come true days later, hunches that turn out to be exactly right in ways that feel impossible. The first power is height and perception, and I don't mean you're becoming generally more aware. I mean you're developing the ability to perceive information that isn't coming through your 5 physical senses. Neuroscientists studying people with activated pineal glands have found something fascinating. Their brains show activity in sensory processing regions even when no external stimuli are present. They're receiving data, but it's not coming from their eyes or ears or skin. It's coming from the field itself. This is what the ancients called clairvoyance. But it's not about seeing the future in some mystical crystal ball. It's about becoming sensitive to information patterns that exist in the quantum field before they collapse into physical manifestation. You're seeing the wave before it becomes a particle, the possibility before it becomes an event. And here's what this looks like in practice. You walk into a room and you know, not think, not suspect, but know that something significant happened there recently. You meet someone new and within seconds you understand their core wound, their deepest fear, their primary defense mechanism, not because they told you, not because you're reading body language, but because you're perceiving the frequency signature they're broadcasting, or you're thinking about a decision you need to make, and suddenly you get this crystalline clarity about which path leads where, not based on logic, not based on past experience, but based on information you're somehow accessing about probability fields that haven't collapsed yet. This is already happening to you, isn't it? Maybe you've been dismissing it as intuition or good instincts, but it's more than that now. It's becoming stronger, clearer, harder to ignore. That's the activation working. The second power is synchronicity mastery, and this is where things get really practical really fast, because what you're developing right now is the ability to consciously influence probability, not through positive thinking, not through vision boards or affirmations, but through a quantum mechanism that physicists call observer-dependent reality collapse. Here's what the research shows. The act of observation affects quantum systems. When you observe a particle, you collapse its wave function. It goes from existing in multiple potential states to manifesting in one specific state. And the fascinating discovery is this. Conscious observation doesn't just collapse quantum systems randomly, it collapses them in correlation with the observer's coherent state. Let me say that in plain language. When your nervous system is in a coherent state, when your heart rhythm is stable, when your brain waves are synchronized, when your intention is clear, you influence quantum probability fields to collapse in alignment with that coherence. You're not controlling reality, you're participating in its creation at the quantum level. This is what people mean when they talk about manifestation, but most people are trying to manifest from a dysregulated nervous system, from scattered attention, from incoherent desire. And it doesn't work, or it works sporadically, unpredictably, in ways that feel more frustrating than magical. But when you're activated, when you're seeing 1111 and your system is synchronizing with these higher frequency bands, you gain access to a level of coherence that makes synchronicity reliable, repeatable, directional. You start noticing that the right people appear at the right time. The right resources show up exactly when you need them. Doors open that you didn't even know you were looking for. And it's not luck. It's not the universe rewarding you for being spiritual. It's you operating at a frequency where you can participate in probability field collapse in ways that most people can't access. The third power is the most disorienting, and I need you to stay with me here because this is where people either integrate or spiral. you're developing timeline awareness, the ability to perceive decision points before they fully materialize in your experienced reality. Think of time not as a linear river you're being carried down, but as a landscape of possibilities you're navigating through. Every decision you make, every choice point you encounter, branches into multiple potential timelines. Most people experience this retrospectively. They make a choice, and later they think, what if I'd gone the other way? But you're starting to experience it prospectively. You're becoming aware of the branching before you reach the fork. This shows up as a very specific sensation. You'll be moving through your normal day, and suddenly you'll get this flash of something, not quite a vision, not quite a thought, more like a preview. You'll see or sense or know what happens if you say yes to this invitation, what unfolds if you take this job, where this relationship leads if you pursue it. And it's not definitive, it's probabilistic. You're seeing the most likely timeline based on current momentum. But because you can see it, you can choose, you can navigate, you can shift your trajectory before you're locked into a path you don't want. This is what the mystics meant by prophecy, not fortune-telling, timeline navigation, probability, sensitivity, the ability to read the field and make informed choices about which version of the future you want to participate in creating. Now, here's why this feels urgent, and it's not manipulation and it's not fear-mongering. There's a legitimate biological and energetic reason why activation windows matter. When your system reaches a new frequency threshold, there's a period of plasticity. Your neural networks are reorganizing, your bioelectric field is stabilizing at this new resonance, and during this window, integration is exponentially easier than it will be once your system settles. Think of it like learning a language as a child versus learning it as an adult. The neuroplasticity window is open, but it doesn't stay open indefinitely. If you don't actively engage with and stabilize these abilities during the activation window, they'll fade back into background noise. You'll still get occasional glimpses, random hits of intuition, sporadic synchronicities, but they won't become reliable. They won't become tools you can actually use. The activation window for most people lasts somewhere between 3 and 6 months from the first time they start seeing 1111 consistently. You're in that window right now. That's why this feels urgent. That's why you clicked on this video. Some part of you knows now is the time, not later, not when it's more convenient, not when you feel more ready, now. So let me show you exactly how to stabilize these abilities so they become integrated rather than intermittent. First, you need to understand that these powers aren't separate from you. They're not being granted to you by some external force. They're emerging from within you as your system reaches coherence, which means the key to stabilizing them is maintaining coherence. And coherence isn't complicated. It's the state where your heart, your brain, and your nervous system are synchronized, where your conscious intention aligns with your subconscious programming, where what you think, what you feel, and what you do are pointing in the same direction. Here's the practical protocol. Every single day, preferably in the morning before your nervous system gets activated by external demands, you need 5 minutes of coherence practice, not meditation, not visualization, coherence. And here's exactly how you do it. Find a quiet space. Place one hand on your heart. Breathe slowly. 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. As you breathe, bring your attention to your heart center, not your thoughts about your heart, your actual felt sense of the area in the middle of your chest. And here's the crucial part. As you breathe and focus on your heart, recall a moment when you felt genuine appreciation, not gratitude for something you think you should be grateful for, but real, authentic appreciation, a moment when you felt completely here, completely present, completely aligned with being alive. Hold that feeling, breathe with it, let it expand through your chest, your body, your field. Do this for 5 minutes. That's it. That's the foundation. Because what you're doing in those 5 minutes is training your system to access coherence on demand. And when you can access coherence on demand, you can activate these supernatural powers on demand. Second protocol, when you see 1111, don't just notice it and move on. Pause, even if it's just for 10 seconds. Take a breath, place your attention at your heart center, and ask yourself, what am I being shown right now? Not what does this mean, not is this a sign, but what information is available to me in this moment that I'm usually too scattered to perceive? Sometimes it'll be nothing, just a moment of presence, and that's valuable. But sometimes you'll get a hit, a knowing, clarity about something you've been confused about, an answer to a question you've been carrying. That's the heightened perception coming online. And the more you practice pausing and asking in those 1111 moments, the stronger and clearer that channel becomes. Third protocol, start tracking your synchronicities, not in some precious spiritual journal with butterfly stickers. Just a simple note in your phone. When something synchronistic happens, you think of someone and they call, you need information, and it appears you're wondering about something and a stranger brings it up. Make a note. Date, time, what happened. Do this for 30 days. And here's what you're going to notice. The synchronicities aren't random. They cluster around specific states of consciousness. When you're coherent, relaxed, present, they happen more. When you're anxious, contracted, forcing, they disappear. You're gathering data about the conditions that allow you to access these abilities, and data gives you power. Power to replicate the conditions, power to step into these abilities consciously rather than waiting for them to happen to you. Fourth protocol, and this is crucial, you need to start making small decisions based on your heightened perception, even when it doesn't make logical sense. Not big life-altering decisions, small ones. Which route to take home, which person to talk to at the gathering, which book to pick up. When you get a hit, a sense, a knowing, follow it. Test it, see what happens. Because here's what most people do. They get these intuitive hits, these moments of knowing, but then they second-guess them. They override them with logic. They talk themselves out of it. And every time you do that, you're training your system that the intuitive information isn't trustworthy. You're weakening the channel. But when you follow the hits, even the small ones, you're strengthening the channel. You're building trust between your conscious mind and your expanded perception. And that trust is what allows the bigger information, the more significant guidance to come through clearly. Now let me tell you the fastest way to deactivate these powers. The fastest way to lose access is to treat them like proof of your specialness. The moment you start using these abilities to feel superior to others, to prove you're chosen or awakened or different, your system contracts, because superiority is a low-frequency state. It's based on separation. And these abilities only function at high-frequency states of coherence and connection. The second way people deactivate is by trying to convince others, by needing validation from people who aren't activated, by performing your abilities or sharing your experiences with people who aren't ready to receive them. Every time you do that, you're leaking energy, you're destabilizing your field, and the abilities fade. These powers aren't for showing off. They're not for collecting followers or proving you're special. They're tools for navigating reality more effectively, for serving your purpose more fully, for participating in the conscious evolution of humanity. The moment you forget that, the moment you make it about ego, you lose access. And the third way people deactivate is by treating this like a hobby, like something you do when you have time, when you're in the mood, when it's convenient. No, this is your new baseline. This is who you're becoming. And becoming requires consistency. Not perfection, but consistency. So here's what matters about your next 72 hours. What you do in the next 3 days, IWAS will determine whether this activation becomes permanent integration or fades back into occasional glimpses. And I'm not saying that to create pressure. I'm saying it because it's true. You're in a window of neuroplasticity right now. Your system is reorganizing at a new frequency. The habits you establish now, the practices you commit to now, the choices you make now, they're setting the pattern. So here's what I'm asking you to do. For the next 3 days, commit to the 5-minute coherence practice every morning. Commit to pausing when you see 1111. Commit to tracking at least one synchronicity per day. Commit to following at least one intuitive hit, even if it seems small or silly. 3 days, that's all. And at the end of those 3 days, check in with yourself. Notice what's different. Notice what's clearer. Notice what's opened, because I promise you, if you actually do these things, you're going to have direct, undeniable evidence that something real is happening. And not because I told you, not because you believe it, but because you'll have experienced it. And from that place of direct experience, you can decide, do I want to continue developing these abilities? Do I want to stabilize this activation? Do I want to become someone who can navigate reality at this level of perception and influence? Because that's what this is really about. You're not just seeing numbers. You're not just experiencing coincidences. You're being invited into a completely different relationship with reality. One where you're not just a passive observer, but an active participant. One where you're not just responding to what happens, but consciously influencing what unfolds. The universe, or the field, or consciousness, or however you understand this, has activated something in you. It's real, it's measurable, it's yours. What you do with it, whether you develop it or let it fade, whether you integrate it or dismiss it, that's entirely up to you. But you already know the answer, don't you? That's why you're still here. That's why you clicked on this video. That's why you're seeing 1111. Some part of you has already decided. Some part of you already knows. This is your path. This is your time. This is your activation. And it's not going to wait forever. So the question isn't whether this is real. The question is, are you ready to step into it?